Hello everyone, welcome back to another Project Gladiator weather forecast. Today I'll be covering the weather for August 29th of 2023, and currently we have a slight risk region for the western Florida region. This is expected to be triggered by some of the outer bands from Hurricane Idalia, and I will get into deeper detail about that later in today's forecast. And you can see that we do have a fairly large marginal threat around that for the majority of Florida, so we could see the possibility of some organized thunderstorms for a vast majority of Florida today. We also do have a slight risk region that I'm not going to cover in today's forecast. This is going to be the main focus for today's forecast. But there is a marginal threat with a slight risk region for the Montana to Idaho border, with a marginal threat around that does extend out into Canada. As for threats for today, we do have a 5% tornado threat for the slight risk region. That is going to be bumping that severe potential up to a slight risk region, so our main threat for today is going to be that 5% tornado threat. As for wind, we do have a 15% wind threat for the slight risk region for the northwestern United States area, as well as a 5% wind threat for the slight risk region for Florida. And you can see, as for hail, we don't really have all that much of a hail potential for Florida, and I will get into why that is. But we do have a 5% hail threat for Idaho into Montana and parts of Washington and Oregon for that marginal and slight risk region in the northwestern United States. Taking a look at our 7-day tropical graphical weather outlook, I am going to be mainly focusing on Hurricane Idalia today. You can see that we do have an M for the day of impact and right around the location of impact for 8 a.m. on Wednesday. This is going to mean Category 3 status for Hurricane Idalia, as it does get up to the United States and impact Florida on Wednesday, early Wednesday, and you can see that we do have another H here for later today or overnight for today and early tomorrow, and this is going to be in Category 2 status, and it's currently at Category 1 status as of right now. And why we are expected to see a major jump in intensity for Hurricane Idalia is intense water temperatures in the Gulf of Mexico, and I will get into more detail about that later in today's forecast. And I will definitely explain why we are expected to see a major jump in intensity over what seems to be a 24 to 36 hour period. And again, I will definitely explain to you why that is. But some major impacts that we are expected to see because of Hurricane Idalia is expected to be major storm surge. Because if you don't know already, we are expected to have a supermoon on the day of impact of Hurricane Idalia, which is expected to lead to increased tides and an overall increased threat of storm surge for the impact location and the surrounding areas of this warning cone on impact day of Hurricane Idalia, as well as the potential for any wind damage like down trees or down power lines or damages to your roof or buildings, as well as the potential for major flash flooding for any location in this warning cone. That includes Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, and North Carolina. And again, I will get into why that is. So do keep that in mind if you do live in this warning cone region for Hurricane Idalia or any of the surrounding areas, as they could definitely see impacts similar to our places that are inside the warning cone if you just live close to outside the warning cone. Do keep in mind if you do keep all this in mind if you do live in any of these areas. Taking a look at our composite reflectivity, I'm not going to be taking a look at our 500 millibars because we already know what's going to be causing this slight risk region for western Florida. And the culprit is going to be this line of storms that you see developing over time. I have a position right like after storm development, a few frames after storm development, and this line of storms right here is going to be the culprit for this slight risk region, leading to the possibility of a few tornadoes. But overall, our main threat from these line of storms is going to be a few tornadoes. So do keep that in mind if you live in this slight risk region. Taking a look at our dew points, mainly focusing on the slight risk region, we are expected to have very strong dew points for this region. Dew points that are expected to be into the mid 70s, which is typical for Florida because it is a peninsula in the middle of the Atlantic and Gulf of Mexico. So we typically do see very intense dew points for this particular location. So I'm not too surprised, and we should definitely see the possibility of some fairly strong instability for this region. Taking a look at our temperatures, there are two main things that I want to focus on with this parameter, and it's going to be two major things: temperatures of the water in the Gulf of Mexico and the temperatures of the land on the Florida Peninsula and how it might affect our instability. But focusing on the temperatures in the of the waters in the Gulf of Mexico, you can see that we are expected to have intense amounts of heating in the waters in the Gulf of Mexico. We are expected to see water temperatures that are going to be in the 86s, the 85s, and potentially getting even higher. This is definitely going to lead to major upscale growth in Hurricane Idalia in what seems to be a 24 to 36 hour period, which is what's going to be bumping it up from a Category 1 to Category 2 to a Category 3 in what seems to be again a 24 to 36 hour period. The heat of the water acts as fuel for hurricanes, and with temperatures like this, it is having access to water temperatures that were very similar to water temperatures of the time of Hurricane Ian when it did impact Florida. Hurricane Ian did have water temperatures very similar, but it also was moving much slower across the Gulf of Mexico, which gave it more time to develop and use up the heat of the water to its extent, but because of how much quicker Hurricane Idalia is moving through the Gulf of Mexico, it won't have as much time to develop, but it will still definitely allow but it still will definitely be able to use the intense heat of the water in the Gulf of Mexico, and that is again what's causing a major upscale growth in Hurricane Idalia, and what's going to be causing it to jump from a Category 1 to a Category 3 in what seems to be a 24 to 36 hour period. But then if we take a look at the temperature for the land in of the Florida Peninsula, you can see that we are expected to see temperatures that are going to be in the 90 anywhere from 92 to 94 degrees. That is definitely going to allow for some strong instability with the dew points that we have. We could definitely see some fairly strong instability across this region with dew points in the mid 70s and temperatures in the 90s. Taking a look at our instability, focusing on the slight risk region, you can see that we are expected to have some overall more moderate instability. We are expected to have Cape values that are going to be ranging anywhere from 1,000 into the upper triple digits, and going up to the mid 2000s. So this will definitely still support the possibility of damaging winds and the threat of a few tornadoes. But as for directional shear, you may be wondering what might be giving us this directional shear, because if you think about it, we don't have a shortwave trough or anything moving across this region to give us directional shear with strong veering of the winds like we need for tornadoes. However, you would be mistaken, because Hurricane Idalia is basically one massive rotating system, which because it is rotating, it does have those veering of the winds, which is needed for directional shear to support curved hodographs and the possibility of tornadoes across the slight risk region. So directional shear from Hurricane Idalia will definitely allow for a few tornadoes across this slight risk region. Now that I've told you the weather, please go down to the description and check out the socials for Project Gladiator, and join the Discord for any updates on Project Gladiator. And if you live in any of the areas that I covered for today, please stay weather alert for the time being, and hopefully I will be able to see you guys tomorrow with another forecast.